Stroke.
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 Hello.
Hi.
I'm
Hi, can
Zoe.
you hear me?
Um,
Hi, can you hear me?
yeah,
Yeah,
we can hear you.
Yeah. Oh, perfect.
All right. How was your day so far?
Good. I'm so sorry. I'm so late. I had a
No,
little
you're
trouble
good.
putting my little
It's
one
all
down.
right. All right. So thank you so much for being here. We're so excited to talk to you and learn about stroke through all your experiences.
Of course. And what was your name again?
My name's Charu.
Nice to meet you, Shannel.
Nice to meet you too.
My name is Lisa, and
Hi.
before we
I'm
begin,
Marcia.
before we begin, would you please give us some background information about yourself and just anything you want us to know before we ask you questions?
Sure. No problem. So my name is Shannel Pearman. I live in Baltimore, Maryland. And prior to my stroke, I was a TV news reporter. And so I guess you could still categorize me as a journalist because I hope to one day be able to get back into it once, I feel like I'm recovered enough to go back into working. But yes, so in 2019, I had my stroke. And it was just 1 week after having my son, unfortunately. And it was categorized as postpartum preeclampsia as the cause of the stroke. And so, 1 week after having my son, I ended up having a stroke. And the stroke almost killed me. It was a pretty massive stroke, but I'm thankful to be here. And because of the stroke, I lost some of my vision, unfortunately. And I deal with a bunch of other cognitive issues post-stroke. But so right now I've just been recovering. I've been home with my son ever since, and just trying to figure out life post-stroke.
Yeah, and what type of stroke did you have, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, no worries. A hemorrhagic stroke.
So now let's get into some questions, and it's totally up to you, whichever you want to answer and how much detail you want to share. So,
Sure.
If you don't mind, could you tell us more about what actually happened that day?
Yeah, sure. So the day that it happened, it was a Saturday, and that day it was 1 week after having my son. So we had family over. Some people got to meet my son for the first time. It was a great day. And then that night, we were up, my husband and I were taking turns being up with Jace, is my son's name. He was just being the typical baby, not wanting to go to sleep and crying and fussing and stuff. And out of nowhere, I got a really bad headache. And I just thought, it's just a headache. Let me just take some medicine and, try to, sleep it off. But thankfully, my son was being a baby and crying and fussing, and he kept me up. So I didn't go to sleep, thank God. So remember just being up, trying to tend to the baby. And then out of nowhere, I had to throw up. And so I ran to the bathroom and I had to vomit. And my husband was worried about me. So he ran after me into the bathroom. And I remember looking up at him, and then boom, half of my vision went. I couldn't see half of his face. So it just happened so quickly. And I didn't know what was going on. I just knew something wasn't right. So I called my mom, who has a background in healthcare, and she used to be a nurse. And so I called her and I told her, Mom, I have this headache. I just threw up and my vision's funny. I think, excuse me, I can't see. I can't see the left side. And instantly she's like, you got to get to a hospital. So quickly, we have a 1 week old baby, and my husband and I, we just threw things in a bag and grabbed our son and went to the hospital where I gave birth because we knew it was close to the house. And I didn't even think about a stroke at that time. My mom didn't even say stroke. She just said, get to a hospital. But I never in a million years would have thought a stroke. I was 29 years old. I was healthy as far as I was concerned. I had no idea that was in the realm of possibilities of happening.
All right. And would you say, like, based on your symptoms, so like you said, you didn't have any idea that it was a stroke at all?
No, because I know it's kind of, when you think of a stroke, I know a big misconception that I gave into is you think a stroke is an old person's illness. You know, you think of older people getting a stroke. You don't think of a healthy 29-year-old getting a stroke. So yeah, I had no idea. And I didn't even know any of the symptoms or anything.
Does your family have any history of stroke? And do you think it could have been genetic?
No, didn't believe it was genetic. For my case, it was pregnancy related. Yeah, so I guess I had kind of a unique situation. They're categorizing it postpartum preeclampsia, which is the cause of the stroke.
Do you mind elaborating on that term? Because I'm not very familiar with that term.
Yeah, sure, no problem. So postpartum preeclampsia is, I don't know if you've heard of preeclampsia, but preeclampsia is something that could occur during pregnancy. It's when you have high blood pressure during pregnancy, and the high blood pressure is caused because of pregnancy. And for me, I felt as though I showed signs of preeclampsia and towards the end of my pregnancy, but my doctor kind of didn't really listen to my concerns. They just thought, oh, you're okay, you're fine, it's okay. But clearly I wasn't, and they just didn't know. But yet, so preeclampsia is something that can be treated if, caught, and the doctors take care of it. They can give you medicine to lower your blood pressure and stuff. But because the doctors didn't do that with me, I went that week after giving birth and my blood pressure was rising and rising, and we didn't know. And until, boom, the stroke happened.
Would you categorize your symptoms as they were super subtle, and the fact that not a lot of doctors could catch on it? They're pretty subtle, weren't they?
Yes, well, I thought that my symptoms were enough to know that something wasn't right. At least for me, I knew that something wasn't right towards the end of my pregnancy. I even told the doctors that, something's not right. One of my last doctor's appointments before my son was born, and they took my blood pressure, it was higher than normal. It wasn't severe, but it was a lot higher than my normal numbers. Then I even said, that doesn't seem right. What's going on? And I voiced my concerns, but the doctor was so adamant that, I'm okay. It's not that bad. So the signs were definitely there, but I think that, for whatever reason, the doctor didn't really listen to my concerns.
Do you think
okay.
the doctor caught it before that maybe you would have avoided stroke?
For sure, 1,000%. Because with preeclampsia, like I said, it's treatable, whether you go on medication or, for me, since I was already 40, because that last week of my pregnancy, I was already past my due date when we noticed the concerns. And I had the swelling and, I just had signs there that something wasn't right. And I could have been induced, so they could have had it so I delivered my baby sooner. I could have delivered my baby that week, but instead I went a whole week post the time I was supposed to give birth. So it was just all this extra time of all the symptoms just stewing, and my body is just, fighting to keep me and my baby alive at this point. So I think if they did listen to my concerns and, I was induced earlier, I 1,000% believe the stroke could have been avoided.
Mm-hmm. Since it's very likely for one person to get stroke a second time, and 1 in 4 people get a stroke a second time, what are some things you would do to avoid a second stroke?
Yes, I am definitely in tune with my body, and any time I feel like anything is wrong, I would rather be safe than sorry and go get checked out. So that's something I'm very in tune of. Whereas before, if I had a really bad headache, I probably wouldn't have thought anything of it. Oh, it's just a headache. But now I know that there's a likelihood of that. So there's being in tune with my body, there's exercising, eating right. Even though those were things I was doing before, like I said, I was healthy at the time the stroke happened. But just to be sure that, try to decrease the chances of a second stroke happening.
And we know that you said you lost like some of your vision. So what were some like pretty major lifestyle changes that you had to go through after your stroke?
Yes, well, my whole life changed after the stroke. Since I lost some of my vision, I haven't gone back to work yet. So it's been a year and a half now of me not working and just being out on disability. I don't drive, unfortunately, so that's a huge thing. Being an independent woman and, going and coming as I want to go, and now having to solely depend on my husband to drive me everywhere. I mean, he's been amazing, but I would like to be able to drive to Chick-fil-A or Wawa or something, and I can't do that, unfortunately. So yeah, not driving, not working, just relearning how to do things, just even simple things like moving around my house. Because I would, for the longest time, and even still sometimes, it actually happened today, I will bump into walls or doors or miss something. Cooking has changed for me completely. I don't cook as much as I used to. Just every facet of life, the vision loss has changed things for me.
And you said that you haven't been going to your job recently. So due to your stroke, was there like any particular activity that you couldn't continue anymore, or like an interest maybe?
Yeah, just everything really. Even something as simple as going to a store was difficult, because of vision loss was for sure the biggest deficit from my stroke. There's also cognitive issues post-stroke, a lot of invisible disabilities. Like I suffer from severe anxiety now, and being in being in a store and being in crowds of people, even before the pandemic, that was very anxious for me. Or wondering, am I going to bump into something? Am I going to see something? Am I going to forget to look to my left because I lost a vision, my left peripheral side? So even going into Target, which is something I would do every day before the stroke, I don't do that. I've been in the Target one time since the stroke has happened. And hanging out with friends and stuff like that, I can't do that as often because I can't drive. So it's only when they can drive to me, and some social things I just don't go to. So it's changed a lot. And even dancing, I used to love to dance and go with my husband. It's just everything has changed.
What was the biggest challenge you faced when you were recovering from stroke, both mentally and physically?
Yes, well, there were definitely challenges both mentally and physically because not only was I a stroke survivor recovering from that, but I was a new mom. So trying to figure out both and balance both were very difficult challenges. Physically, it was rough because I was recovering from brain surgery, emergency brain surgery. And then I ended up having to have 2 brain surgeries. I had the emergency brain surgery when the stroke happened. And so the doctors had to go in and stop the bleeding, and they removed part of my skull. So my brain could heal naturally, and it would be a lot of swelling. So I had to have this ugly helmets on my head for a good 2 months after my stroke. So because there was just the soft tissue there for my brain healing. And then I had a second surgery where they put back the skull. So I had 2 major brain surgeries done, and I had to recover from that, which was a lot. Just dealing with the pain of the surgeries and my brain healing and being very exhausted and fatigued. And it was just a lot physically. But then I think emotionally, it was rough learning to, first off, dealing with the loss of my vision. I mean, it's something I definitely took for granted, being able to see, and then now not having that vision. And the sadness of thinking, will I ever be able to fully see my son again? It was very emotional, and I suffer from depression in some aspects because of that. So it's been really rough, but despite even the roughness, I have a lot to be thankful for. I'm still alive. I have a beautiful family. My son is healthy and happy, and my husband's amazing. So, I try to look at the positive stuff, and I try to be positive. That gets me through the roughness of it all.
Yeah, definitely. And did that event change your way of thinking and viewing life as a whole?
Yes. I mean, I feel like it's so cliche to say, don't take anything for granted, live life to the fullest. And when YOLO used to be a thing, I feel like it's such a cliche, but it really put things into perspective for me because, I did almost lose my life. If I did go to sleep that night, I wouldn't be here with my son and my husband. So it has made death a real thing for me. It's not something where you think you're just going to live forever. It's like, no, life can change in a blink of an eye. And it almost did for me. So I appreciate life so much more. I love my family so much more because I'm so thankful for them. They have been there with me and supported me through the darkest times of my life. So I just have a great sense of gratitude.
Have you met any new people throughout this experience who have impacted your way of thinking or your life in general?
Yes, I have met some amazing fellow stroke survivors thanks to social media. There is a great online community of young stroke survivors. And unfortunately, there are a lot of us, a lot of young people who unfortunately had strokes. So it's been amazing to connect to other people who were in similar situations and can get it and can understand it. Even as simple as, fortunately, I wasn't paralyzed because of the stroke, but I know a lot of stroke survivors are paralyzed. And so people look at me and they can't tell that I had a stroke, but they don't get the invisible disabilities I deal with. So to talk to other stroke survivors and they're like, yeah, I get it. I know what you're going through. It's really been amazing to have that kind of support. And it's really meant the world to me.
And also we know that you actually had an Emmy nomination for reporting, and we're just curious, how was that experience for you?
Thank you. Yes, that was an amazing time. I was nominated for the Emmy back in 2016 and for Best Sportscast because at that time I was a sports reporter and anchor. And that's something else that's been, I guess that's a part of something that I really enjoyed that I can't do anymore. Sports was such a big part of my life. I was a sports reporter, sports anchor, and now I can't watch sports anymore. Unfortunately, just because visually, with my vision loss, it's kind of tricky to see, but then also it's difficult for my brain to process things. So processing where for football, seeing where the ball is going and what plays are happening, it's too much for my brain to process. So I'm like, what's happening? What's going on? So I can't, what used to be a big part of my life, I can't have it anymore. But for the Emmy, that was an amazing time because, being a female sportscaster at the time and to be nominated for Best Sportscast, that was huge. That was huge for me. And this happened right after I got married. So it was just a huge, great moment in time for me and something I never forget. And hopefully I could get back to reporting one day, but worst case, if not, that's something no one can ever take away from me, being nominated for an Emmy.
Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
So would you like to share something to people who are going through a similar situation as you?
Yeah, sure. The best thing I could say is, to keep fighting. Being a stroke survivor is a constant battle. It's a constant fight. Even when you think, you're out of the woods, there's just always something new being a stroke survivor. but to keep fighting and to always look at the positives. We're here for a reason. You survived something that, statistically should have taken you out. So the fact that you're here still is beautiful and it's amazing. And we have to live life to the fullest and look at the bright side of things and just continue to fight, because life is precious and we can't take it for granted.
All right. And yeah, that's all we have for today. Thank you so much for spending your time with us and answering all our questions. We learned a lot from you.
Guys. No problem.
Yeah,
if you need
you.
anything else, feel free to reach out. But thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. And hopefully we'll be able to share like everything we learned here with our Hosa group as well. So yeah, have a great day. Thank you.
You too. Bye, you guys.
Thank you so much.
Of course,
Bye.
bye.
Have a great day.
You too.